If you are asked me, let us say, why is school education, college education? The velocity of light in vacuum is a constant and is independent not only of the direction of propagation, but also of the relative velocity of the source and observer. I'll get full mark for what I have stated. Agricultural practices will be seen from the rigors of engineering. Engineering sciences is the fourth component of the next generation in the K to 12 series. English as the lingua franca of science. This is a question which we should ask ourselves, is it?
So, what do you think is also an important aspect of science education? Why are our students going away from the fundamental science? Why they are not fascinated? Why they are not curious about science and science principles, even mathematics?
We have physical sciences, we have life sciences, we have engineering sciences, and we have geo and earth sciences. That is the new system which they are following.
Let's get to the second part of it. Now, why do you need farming? Because I just wanted to showcase one impact of nuclear science and the impact of technology in that can change lives and that can change the career options of our future citizens. So, what do you think is also an important aspect of science education? Why are our students going away from the fundamental science? Why they are not fascinated? Why they are not curious about science and science principles, even mathematics? I've seen lakhs of students being, I should say, they are thrown out of the science classrooms by the teaching community, by maybe the textbooks, by the exams, by the stress. If they can't understand something, is it not the responsibility of the scientific community also to explain it to them in such a way that they understand it, they become curious about it, and they want to pursue it in that original form?
Very true. Are we teaching science in the schools or are we throwing it out of the classes? That's what is the main problem. In the conventional classroom, where it is the chalk and talk, we have a syllabus, we have an examination, and the whole system is geared for that. You learn, send it to your rote memory, reproduce it, and if you are successful, you come out. But science basically is not knowing things, it is doing things. So the doing aspect of science, it has a dual nature, like wave particle duality, knowing and doing. And most of us know things, we don't do anything. And we do many things without knowing what we are doing. This dichotomy, dissociation between knowing and doing is the fundamental problem of school science education. If you are asked me, let us say, why is school education, college education, theory of relativity. If you ask me to relate, I'll say, oh, the laws of natural phenomena are the same when stated in terms of two systems of reference in uniform translatory motion. The velocity of light in vacuum is a constant and is independent not only of the direction of propagation, but also of the relative velocity of the source and observer. I'll get full mark for what I have stated. And that knowledge which I reproduce by rote memory will have no effect on my working in CERN or anywhere else. So, as a scientist, most of us have picked up and we have a huge bank of rote memory, which is not what science wants. I should be able to do something. This knowing is not knowing unless I do that. So, to do that, we need the next generation science standards. And many of the departmentalization of science has to go. For example, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. We should not do this way. This is all silos learning. You look at the next generation science standards. We have physical sciences, we have life sciences, we have engineering sciences, and we have geo and earth sciences. That is the new system which they are following. Now they have started a fourth one called engineering sciences. That is where agricultural comes. So agricultural practices will be seen from the rigors of engineering. Because
And sciences.
and sciences. That is why engineering sciences is the fourth component of the next generation in the K to 12 series. So you have physical sciences, physics and chemistry combined into one. life sciences, botany, biology, all together, botany and zoology together. Third one, which is missing in many of our K-12 series, geo and space sciences. You have the satellites, you must know the soil. So geo and space sciences. And the fourth one, engineering sciences. That is a new way of looking at science education itself. You have now four, I would say ultimately these four compartments also should vanish into a single one. That is a holistic approach totally. But right now, at least bring in geosciences and engineering sciences, the whole mindset of the student community. No one will look at agriculture as badly as they do today if this type of approach is given to them. And a new generation is coming up being taught in this manner. I think soon we will also be getting into these advanced concepts. That's what I feel.
Uh, Going back to the tribe of storytellers
Yeah,
in science,
yeah.
I see that as science communicators, as um, like Professor Shivadas, how do you train the scientists to speak the language of children as well? No, they are too busy with a lot of these life-changing, world-shattering research. But is it also not important to train them on storytelling so that some of their thoughts can be translated, that can be digested by the next generation? Is it not your responsibility to inspire the next generation of scientists that can drive this?
I take your point. Scientific social responsibility. We all speak about social responsibility. Scientific social responsibility includes this. Scientists who are very familiar with their work and concepts should be able to narrate this as creative science literature to children. This is what Professor Shivadas has done. This is what Narlikar has done. They have created a new genre of literature where the complex concepts are simplified and narrated to the children. Of course, some very senior scientists say this is not the way to teach science. Science cannot be told as stories. I would take the other position. If you can't tell a story about what you do not do the science what you are prophecy. So science storytelling is an essential part, is an inevitable option for a scientist to communicate. So science communication now is being taught as a separate subject. Now we have degrees, MSc, PhD, MTech in science communication. There are international conferences. So, and science storytelling can be done so well. I have tried one which is called nuclear masal dosha. So in nuclear masala dosha, I try to bring the earlier ideas you mentioned. How can you make it appealing to the agricultural, the farmer people? So I
The
take
video is on YouTube.
video is on YouTube. So but nuclear masala dosha not by the fancy of what is doing. There is also another one. There is interdisciplinary science, multidisciplinary science, transdisciplinary science. The various combinations of science is also brought into that. So all the advantages which nuclear energy has brought, that I have put it into a masala dosa, into a spicy form and narrated it. And even today, it was about 10 years ago, and it was a fancy for me at that point of time. But even today, when I look back, there are merits. It needs improvement and further one. And I tried with my grandson who looked at this story, and he told me in Columbia University he had his friends, and he narrated this story and they saw the YouTube, and they were surprised to find that this is a means of communication. So, and now I am trying to get for example, on reverse osmosis, we can have folk tales welded into science stories. For example, there was a very an old Soyambara story in which the king asks every farmer to bring milk. Everybody brings milk. One man brings only a small quantity of milk. After that, he starts adding water in front of the king. He was caught red handed. And you are going to dilute the milk for my daughter's marriage? Yes, sir, I added. But I have brought a concentrate by reverse osmosis. 10 times I have the right to add water. So we built a climax, and there are great narrators who have that fancy and flair for stating this. Narrative is also an art, it's a fine art. So if you get a good storyteller, and if you can sell your story to a good storyteller, and you stand back to answer the technical questions on that, that will be an ideal combination. So we look forward to a new generation of science storytellers where classical storytelling all the goodness of it is the content is curated on the scientific thing. This is what a new genre of communication we are trying to do that.
So, in the Indian context, or maybe the global South context, I was visiting Oxford University.
Yeah,
Just was visiting the campus.
yeah.
I was thinking of the university that I studied in, and the universities my children are going to study. The Indian universities, there are private universities, there are public universities, there are 200-year-old universities here, 5-year-old universities are here. Mahatma Gandhi University is there. I was just thinking of all these universities that we have in India, and I was standing in Oxford, looking around. The advantage of starting this process 900 years back, saying approximately, they have a first mover advantage. The repository of knowledge, the kind of knowledge they created, the research they incubated, the kind of Nobel laureates they created, we are competing with them. And if you look at today, still they are a preferred choice, preferred destination for our youngsters. Seriously looking at research or going beyond the boundaries, Oxford is a destination for most of our youngsters, brilliant minds. I was just thinking how they were able to innovate, reinvent themselves to be at that number one or number two or number three position still after 900 years of bureaucracy, 900 years of doing the same thing. When you talk about research, a lot of administrative stuff is routine. I mean, the vice chancellor to registrar to running a university is
It has its
it's office work. It's like, so they were able to reinvent and still maintain that position. What I was thinking is they have this advantage of owning the knowledge that we have created over maybe thousands or maybe lakhs of years. How they use this language as a medium to store it and retrieve it, and their advantage as English speaking population, they're able to better comprehend and better understand, and we have to learn the language first and then apply it to learn the science and maths, and we have a gap in that. And then there is again the, the migration of the best minds, the best brains, brilliant brains to that system. And we always have a situation where the global north is always at an advantage with the language, with the brain drain, lot of these. What are your thoughts on this? Now we are supposed to be part of the global south, and how do you bridge this gap? No, start from the reality. We have to what do you call validate and identify the problem first, right? So you have to tell me a little bit elaborately how this global south and north, global north came into existence, a little bit of history, and then where we are today, and where we should go in the future.
We have to look at a bit about 200 years back into our history. Science is of a recent origin. It's not very old. The
From
word scientia,
philosophy to yeah.
from philosophy to metaphysics to physics. This is the other way around it. But the word science itself, scientia, it comes much later. Now, the question of English as the lingua franca of science, this is a question which we should ask ourselves, is it? Now, felicity of expression in English is an advantage over a large part of this. And the Macaulay system of education has equipped us remarkably well with that. But you look at the Russian situation. The Russian Sputnik revolution and its diffusion into the Russian masses was through their language. Today in China, it is through the Chinese language. So this
Japanese, Germans, French.
French, so the overarching influence of non-English literature, So we have to accept that on one side.
Even Spanish also.
Spanish. But in India, if I speak Malayalam in science, or I teach engineering, aeronautical engineering in Malayalam, I have a problem with that. So, development of regional languages to the level of state of art knowledge, that is one problem. But we cannot wait such a long time for an individual. An individual has a career with a life cycle of a productive professional life cycle of 40 years. We cannot wait for a 100-year revolution to take place. So, individuals will take a decision. Okay, I will study Spanish and go to Spanish college. I will study English and I will go to such and such a college. And if you want quick returns, for less expenditure of time, you need to go to places where you have these infrastructural advantages. For example, if you want to take a degree in management, let's say you want an MBA, will you go to London Business School? Will you go to Wharton? Or will you go to Harvard? Or will you go to Kellogg's? So the top, or will you go to China or INSEAD? So you take an advantage. I have a linguistic advantage. So I will maximize my linguistic advantage and go to a university where this is available. Again, you raised the question, the universities have created a legacy. When you stood at Oxford, you were thinking about the history, the classical legacy of Oxford. Yes. But you again look at the university. By university, we do not mean the architecture. We do not mean the infrastructure of that. It is the professors in the university who makes it a living situation. That is possible because we have dedicated geniuses sticking to one profession. It is the research work of the management university professors in Harvard which makes it a meritorious place. So we need people. We
And
need
everybody
scientists.
look up to that research.
That research. And that research which is being published in peer-reviewed journals.
Yes.
What is the citation index of the professor?
Yes.
How many PhDs he has produced? And what is his impact in society? And what are the management theories which he has created and which is being vogue in the society?
How many companies he's advising and consulting?
Exactly. So there is a living ecosystem which every professor has created. And an ecosystem of living professors makes a great university. You can inherit a huge infrastructure, but if you have average people inside, it will
And it
be.
should proliferate
It
to
will,
the domains they are in. For example, like you said, there is a Harvard professor who is teaching marketing.
yeah.
He'll be consulting the top 500 companies in the world.
Yes.
He'll be advising top 100 companies in marketing. He's not just teaching, but he's also actively involved, actively participating in the dynamics of commerce, marketing, sales strategies, digital transformation, digital sales. So he's updated. He has the case study, real time case study from all these companies, and then that is what he's bringing back to the classroom.
Yes. This is very, very important. He is learning in the process of teaching. His consultancy gives him data through which he further processes his information. So, this interaction between academia and industry. And a good consultant is one who is good at both. So, a good professor will be a consultant to flourishing industry. And the flourishing industry data will be his data. So, I think it is extremely important that the professors should get out of their classrooms and sit and dirty their hands by going to the field and learning what it is. And they bring it back. So, nothing like that. That's why most of the Indian universities are also now asking for industry academia collaboration.
I think, but that's 0.1% of what exactly is needed.
Yeah, but internship of students and professors of practice. See, some industry people may not be able to deliver academic lectures, probably for want of a PhD or something like that. But that is why we have a new breed of professors, professors of practice. If you work for 20 years, let us say on membranes, you have a knowledge which is not available within any textbook. It's not available with any teaching professor. So professors of practice and teaching professors should be, there is a right mix between the two in every universities. And students should go now from their lab to the industry, because the lab is still a very sterile, small place. The actual reality is in the industry where you have the noise and the sound pollution, all sorts of things are there. So to live inside the industry, then come back to the lab I mean, it is not a linear extrapolation from lab to the field. I think a new ecosystem is coming. There is, I mean, there is openness between universities and the industry. And professors of practice is a new generation. I think they will do a remarkably great job.